My first HO train layout in a long time. Part 1. The search for a track plan and layout. Once I'd fully researched making and using a portable Deadrail demonstration HO layout, which included learning how to use LocoFi for Deadrail battery on board operation, I was ready to start a bit larger and somewhat more complex HO model railroad. Useful links are in the description below this video. Selecting a track plan proved to be extremely difficult. There are so many variables involved that it takes a long time to consider all of the possibilities. That process can become overwhelming and even debilitating. Reaching a decision and actually getting started proved very daunting to me. A list of my goals, considerations, and acceptable constraints was created to help in the decision making. Goals: have some fun. Learn new things and how to do them. Apply some different ways of thinking, or at least some non-conventional means for building a model railroad layout. Use Deadrail battery on board to power the locomotives. Use LocoFi and an Android phone to control the locomotives. Use Atlas Code 83 sectional track, as that was what was used on the demo layout, and that track could then be reused. The track plan must have 2 reversing loops. The track plan must have some interesting operational possibilities. The track plan must be able to include the possibility of a switching or shunting puzzle type operation. Considerations: my age, 76 at the beginning of the layout build. The layout should not be physically too large. The layout should provide for future expansion possibilities. The layout and benchwork has to be easy to move, remove, and change. The completed layout should not be too physically heavy. The completed layout should not have to be demolished to remove it from the basement. The benchwork should allow for the possibility of under-the-benchwork turnout machines. The benchwork should allow possible structure lighting and signal light wiring to be run easily under the benchwork tabletop. The track plan should allow for 2, possibly 3 engineers to run trains or do switching jobs at the same time. The track plan should allow for 2 trains to run simultaneously so that when visitors just want to see some trains run, it is possible. It should not be too time-consuming to construct the track-based tabletop, its frame, and to add track to get trains running. Acceptable constraints. The finished layout will be an island style, walk-around type, because there is no unused wall space in my basement. The scenery is to be somewhat secondary to running and operating the trains. There should be no steep elevation changes, if any. I accept the limitations that using 18-inch radius curves places on locomotive and rolling stock types. The long search for a possible track plan, layout to model. The Atlas HO12 track plan is a folded dogbone with 2 reversing loops. I created an X-Track CAD version of the Atlas HO12 layout and spent hours running and operating trains on the layout. Yes, trains can be run on the layout in X-Track CAD. It ran exactly as I wanted it to, but without extending the left 4-foot by 6-foot, the grade was too steep on the inside left loop heading back to the bridges. I created other iterations that used 4-foot by 8-foot spaces on the left and right, but I was still not satisfied. I added several sidings to increase the operational possibilities. I still was not satisfied. I viewed and reviewed a video of an extended version of the Atlas HO12 track plan on YouTube. This was not going to work for me, so I continued my research. The Woodland Scenics Grand Valley Layout Kit. I carefully watched almost all of the YouTube videos that I found about the Grand Valley. Since the kit had been around for a long time, there are a lot of videos. The videos demonstrated the construction process, as well as the problems with the design and operations of this layout. I thought that this layout would be great to build to learn all kinds of scenic techniques. While researching this design, I purchased the Woodland Scenics book, The Complete Guide to Model Scenery. Unfortunately, I physically cannot read it because of my vision. The pages are 5.5 inches wide and 8.5 inches high. It is crammed with a lot of useful information. Using a magnifying glass, I was able to read the chapter titled Subterranean. For a person with excellent vision, this could be a very useful book. I created 4 different track plans in Extract CAD using the Grand Valley layout as their base. The lower right one corrects a problem when a train comes out of the tunnel and crosses the bridge. For better operational possibilities, a 4-foot by 8-foot extension was added to the original Grand Valley. After watching more and more Woodland Scenics Grand Valley layout videos on YouTube, I decided that this was not the track plan and layout for me. The grades are steep and there is less than 3.5 inches of clearance where the overpass is in the tunnel. Many of the videos showed too many derailments and other problems, and without some kind of extension, the operations were limited to running a couple of trains and switching a couple of cars at the only siding. While trains can be run both clockwise and anti-clockwise, only one way allows rolling stock to be switched to the siding without using the whole layout as a runaround track. It was time to literally go back to the drawing board. I started by creating an L-shaped track plan on 2 4-foot by 8-foot spaces. The track plan had a lot of potential, and I played with this layout idea for a long time. I then realized that this track plan and total layout might just be too much for me to take on at this point in my life. The next track plan mirrored the left 4-foot by 8-foot space with a 4-foot by 4-foot space extension, making a 4-foot by 12-foot space size. It was the modified L plan, so that the right 4-foot by 8-foot space could be added at a later time, if ever. After attending a train show in Lansing, Michigan with a flying buddy, who also does trains, he came into the house and I showed him the layout table I'd been working on and the previous proposed track plan. He liked the table idea, but noted that he preferred a track plan that allowed more than one train to continuously run at a time. That thought played on my mind for several days. A new track plan was created in Extract CAD. The plan allowed 2 trains to run continuously. That was a very different goal than I'd originally intended, with one engineer, me, running a train and doing some switching. The layout that is being worked on now. The track plan is shown connected and pinned on the layout tabletop. At this point in time, some trains have been run to test the track and make sure that everything is working well on this layout and that any problems have been taken care of before continuing. Obviously, the tabletop and framing had to be completed before the previous photo was taken with the track laid out on the tabletop. How the tabletop and framing was constructed is in part 2. I suggest that my website, A Journey into HO-Scale Model Railroading in the 21st Century, should be checked at least on a monthly basis to see what I've learned, relearned, and where I'm going next with this project. If you have questions to ask or comments to share, my email address is linked at the top of my webpage. I would love to hear from you.